no matter what you do, you're gonna win better if you have the more complete package for the insurance carrier. Nothing I do is gonna be about policy. Everything's gonna be anti-litigation. Nothing ever ends up in litigation that I touch. Like, I am the anti-litigation guy. I'm the one that wants to work it out quickly, get paid the highest amount possible without having to go to litigation. I understand the litigation part of it. I understand the PA stuff, and all I want to do is avoid it. That's more me, okay? So everything I'm going to talk about is in the contractor lane, from the contractor's perspective, through the contractor's eyes, what you can do as a contractor. What's up, guys? How you doing, man? Good. Thank you for coming. Thank you for waiting, too. Big house, huh? Wow. Wow. What's up, man? How you doing? Thank you for coming. How are you? Good. Thank you for coming. Chad. Good morning, Enrique. Nice to meet you, brother. What's your name? Sebastian. Hello. What is Alma? Pleasure to meet you, man. How are you? Luisa. Pleasure to meet you, my friend. Thank you guys for coming, man.
Thank you.
Chad. Pleasure to meet you. What's your name? Brian Jordan. You, buddy? Rick. Thank you for coming, man. What's up, man? Thanks for coming, brother. Thank you for coming. Thank you guys for waiting for me. Appreciate it. What's up, brother? How are you, man? All right. How are you guys? How are you, Chad?
Nice to meet you, Chad.
George. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you for coming, brother. Thank you. Thank you for waiting, okay? Who's this sharp guy right here?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Chad. How are you?
Good to meet you, brother.
What's your name?
Ray Corin.
Ray Corin.
Ray Corin.
Thank you for coming. How'd you guys get this front row?
Facebook works, man.
Oh, Facebook works?
Thomas was mother.
What a pleasure to meet you, man. Thank you guys for coming, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, welcome. Welcome, man. Oh, wow. Wow. I'm telling you right now, this is like 110 events for me or something like that. And I know for a fact that this is going to be the best one. I know it is. I know it is. It's the biggest one so far.
Why is it going to be the best?
Oh, man. There's a lot of, I don't know. It's my first time on a stage. I did not order this stage. I don't know if I like it at all. In fact, I don't. I don't like the stage. I already don't like the idea of this being like a training class where I'm supposed to be like a teacher. Because I'm not a teacher, man. I'm just a practitioner like every one of you guys here. And it's just like, I'm just sharing what I've learned through 23 years in the experience in the industry. And that's what it's really about. It's like opening my hood and showing you kind of my process, a lot of my top-down thoughts, like strategies that I use for insurance claims and against insurance adjusters, right? I think everybody most of you came here, and one of the questions I'll get throughout the day is like, well, what do you do when the insurance company doesn't want to pay for this and doesn't want to pay for that? And then I'll give you an answer, and then you'll be like, well, what are you going to do? What do you do if they say this? What do you say? Oh, we can just go all day long. And I think it's more about changing up your thought process about the whole thing. That's how it kind of starts. On a side note, I'm really glad I have my voice. My voice is a little rough today, and I was worried that I was going to lose it this week. So I'm going to lose it before the end of the day. That's for sure, because I'm laying it all on the line. I'm putting it all on the field today. I want to help you more than anything to solve those pain points, to solve those challenges, to where you put the advantage back on your side when it comes to dealing with these insurance companies. And I'm not gonna be fake, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just gonna live my life. I have a lot of love in my heart. I have kindness. I'm a good person. And all I want to do is to impact the lives of others. That's the thing that makes me the most happy. It's not about money for me. It used to be. I can tell you that. It used to be. It's not anymore. And I find that I continue to be more and more blessed, when you do it for the right reasons. So that's really why I'm here. It's not about the money for me. I have to make money, obviously. We all do. You all do. But that's not the number one objective that I'm chasing. So I feel like I'm so excited about my future, as far as career-wise. And so I'm going to, like I said, lay it on the line. Barely made it here. I barely made it here, guys. There are 3 phases of the insurance restoration industry, okay? And this is what I consider to be. And now we're going to just get into the content. And just real quick, housekeeping item, we'll take a break. I usually take like a morning break at around 10:30, but I'm going to do it a little later because we got started late and there's been a lot of things going on, right? But we will take like maybe a 10-minute break, just so you know. And then we'll do lunch from 12 to 1. And you guys, I think we're over there. We're in the next room somewhere. And there's a big ballroom set up. And it's going to be an amazing lunch, right? You guys are all going to get access to a section of that online training course that I have. And you're going to get a ton of documents. Really, this is where, if you don't care about anything I say today, you're going to get so much value from this right here is what I'm telling you. You're going to get 27 different Xactimate templates that I personally wrote, okay, for all different types of insurance jobs. And you'll have the PDF and the ESX. So for those of you who don't know what the ESX is, that's the data file where if you sent that to me and I tried to open it up, I couldn't open it up, right? But if you send it to me and I import it into my Xactimate, then I can open it up and start changing what you wrote. And I can modify and change the square footages and stuff. And that's what you can do. You can take that and open it up, and maybe I have 50 squares and yours is 40. You can go through and see a lot of line items that maybe you didn't know about. You can maybe get some insight for how I structure my estimates. We're going to talk about a lot of that today. But also building codes. Building codes is a big, huge factor. In fact, building codes, you kind of have to, I have an agenda that I do follow. I've done enough of these. I don't have to look at notes and all that. I have a map, a route that I go, but I'm always going to take side streets. That's just me. I always go down side streets and I'll get, kind of diverted, but I always get back on the main roads. Just follow the bouncing ball, if you will. But building codes. Building codes are one of those things. Here's what it is. Adjusters are always talking about, we're not paying for that. The policy doesn't allow for it, right? The policy doesn't cover that. That's not covered by the policy. The policy. If you're a contractor, and this is one of those states that I realize that you can be a contractor and a PA. That's not for you. But I'm talking about just contractors specifically for a moment. If you're a contractor, you should not be talking about policy and coverage at all. It's actually illegal. Unless you are a PA, right? So you can't discuss policy and coverage. There's limited things you can, you need to know if they have coverage and things like that, but you can't go in there and interpret policy and then talk to the adjuster about how, but if they say the policy doesn't cover that, you don't then say, yeah, but the policy also says that, you're out of bounds, right? Because policy and coverage issues are not ever for the contractor. Okay? So that's one thing that I think a lot of people are confused about. They start trying to learn all these things about the policy and how to enforce the policy, and they find out that they actually can't do that. So then they have to go to the client and get the client to sign a form and that they wrote. It's really muddy when you're doing that. Okay? And I think that when an adjuster does that and they say, policy, it kind of takes you and it ties one arm behind your back, right? It gives them that advantage that you can't go there with them, and now you're at a disadvantage because you can't talk about policy and coverage, right? It's a real disadvantage. So building codes is the equalizer. Building codes are the equalizer, the neutralizer that can take away that advantage that they temporarily have and put it back on your side. And why is that? Because building codes, adjusters usually don't know anything about building codes, guys. This is their weakness, okay? So it's like an arbitrage there, an opportunity where you can go in and have an advantage on almost all the adjusters. Some of them are, I know that. There's some sharp adjusters. But out of the more than 1,000 that I've dealt with in my career, they don't know anything about building codes. So what you end up having to do is actually almost educate the adjuster a little bit, like direct them to where they need to go. Really, all they want is the documentation. So I learned about this because like in Facebook and stuff, guys, like I know like you maybe have like you're in groups that are in the industry, probably some of the same that I am. And there'll be someone that gets in there and they're like, hey, can you send me over the flashing code? Does somebody have the flashing code? And that question is wrong because I can't really answer that question because I need more information about that other than just the flashing code, right? And then I see 10 people in there giving them the flashing code. But it's all different flashing codes. I mean, they don't even, so those people don't know what they're doing either. And the reason why I know is because you have to know like where the job is, okay? That's one of the factors. And then number two, is it residential or is it commercial? So if you don't know that information, I can't give you the flashing code, for example. We're going to do a whole segment called the code game. And all this stuff through my career, the building codes to me seemed like a foreign language that I couldn't understand. And I didn't even want to try to understand it, It was like a law book, and I'm like, huh? I don't get this, and I don't like it, so I don't even want to learn it. And how am I going to buy all these code books and study them all? That's like, I got to go to school for that. There's no way. There's not enough time for me to do that. And so I just was real naive, and I relied on other people that were around me that I thought knew the building codes. Now I realize they didn't know anything about the building codes either. So ordinance and law, you might want to write that down. I've never heard that before. Ordinances and law, or ordinance, law, and law. OL coverage, whenever you hear that. Like the client has to have OL coverage, okay? If they do have that coverage, then the insurance company has to pay to bring everything up to code, okay? So like if we're talking about a roof, for example, if they don't have drip edge and the codes are after a certain time frame, and I'll explain what that means later because I don't want to get you bogged down yet, then even though they don't have drip edge, they have to have it, right? So like that's helpful to know, right? It's helpful to know, especially when the adjuster's like, oh, well, I'll pay for it, but you got to get it to me on the city letterhead, things like that. But the building codes are so powerful, guys. And I have finally been able to, several years ago, it finally came to the point where I was able, somebody helped me make it real simple, to simplify this thing. And I want to repeat that with you. Like before you leave, I want you to have a handle and an understanding how these these building codes work. It's really not that difficult. You're going to see it's not that difficult. And then, as part of the documents and things you're going to get, you're going to have a whole slew of building codes, the actual ones that you're going to need. And they're going to be categorized and organized as to how you'll never need to ask anybody for how to get building codes. You'll have that yourself, okay? So you're going to have that, a lot of other forms and documents that are helpful, but the estimates, big value there. So I believe there's, like if you don't have contracts, there's contracts in there that are specifically set up for how to do an insurance restoration project, right? That's very valuable, and the lunch is going to be killer too. So if you don't like anything I say, please don't complain. You're going to get a ton of value, right? But the lunch is going to be 12 to 1. We'll take an afternoon break. And as we go along, as we take these breaks, the value is just going to increase, the intensity level. I'm going to come at you all day like a fire hose. That's how it comes at you. I've taken everything, condensed it down into, and people are like, that's a long time to be said. It is. But man, it's hard to get it all out during the time that we're going to do it. Like I'm telling you, it's going to come at you like a fire hose. So take notes, record, do whatever you want. But I'm telling you, I'm going to give you a lot of value that's going to get more and more complex as we go. So don't eat too much at lunch. I want you sharp in the afternoon. That's where it's really going to get good. Please stay to the end. I know this is a crazy traffic area and it's a Friday, and so a lot of people will have to go, and I get it. I always do. But please stay to the end. All right. 3 phases of the insurance restoration industry. Back to that, right? All right. So there is mitigation, contents, and reconstruction. And by the way, no, that's not out of any book. This is based on what I'm telling you. This is my version. There's 3 phases of the insurance restoration industry. It's the mitigation, emergency services, okay, the contents, and the reconstruction. And so I want to take a second and get to know you guys a bit, all right? I always like to do this, and I think you guys will too, because you'll get a feel for actually who is here. All right? Very first, are there any insurance adjusters here? Not public adjusters, insurance adjusters. Who are the insurance adjusters? Man, I know that there's insurance adjusters in this room. I mean, I know for a fact. Wow, okay, all right. They're afraid. Yeah, they're afraid. And they usually are, man. You know what I mean? Like, they're really shy. But they usually, you know, later on they'll be like, hey, I am an insurance adjuster, you know. But I actually like when insurance adjusters come because they'll add a lot of credibility to what I'm talking about. And then and then if you know who they are, there'll be a lot of questions I'm sure you'd like to ask them. We had a lady that was like, you know, former State Farm high-level desk adjuster, field adjuster. She worked in all these places, and she was just steadily giving us awesome advice on how to deal with them, you know, particular throughout the event. So it's actually a good thing. Are there any attorneys in the room? I also like it when attorneys come too. No attorneys? You got an attorney? Okay, good. Finally. See, he wasn't going to raise his hand. He's like, what's he going to say about attorneys? What's he going to say about attorneys? I love attorneys because they can make sure everything's legal. You know, how are you, man?
Good.
What's your name?
Giovanni.
Giovanni.
Yeah.
All right, welcome, brother. I love attorneys when they come, and he's probably wants to, what type of litigation do you do? Or what type of law do you practice?
Don't ask me for advice yet.
Yeah.
Price, okay?
That's okay, man, yeah.
But I got into contracting.
Sweet. So you like contracting law,
Yeah,
or
contract
do
law.
you do a lot of insurance litigation
Yeah.
too? Are you trying to go there with it?
So yeah, I mean, I just work for like a small company, just trying to like make rules for myself.
Sweet,
I don't,
man.
I don't like to really like take orders, you know?
Yeah.
I build my own stuff.
Good. I mean, me neither, man. We have that in common. Seriously. You don't want to be told what to do, do you?
Yeah.
Well,
A lot of reading.
a lot of reading. Well, congratulations on your path, man. You know, you seem like a sharp guy. So we have an attorney in the house. I usually like that too because a lot of the things I talk about, like you consult your own attorneys, right? I'm not a lawyer. I'll do a lot of things that may depend on getting advice from a lawyer. Things I talk about. Oh, that's of course my disclaimer. I'm sure we have quite a few PAs in here though. Where are the public adjusters? Public adjusters? Yeah, nice. I figured we would. Anytime I'm in Chicago and Illinois, there's that dynamic. Out of the public adjusters, who is a contractor and a public adjuster? Everybody, right? Yeah. Which is so crazy. It's mind-blowing if you're not from here, you know, because it's not like that anywhere else. You can't do that anywhere else. So I think that's super cool. All right. Another one, yeah?
No, but
No?
is anybody here from the FBI?
That's a good question, man. This guy wants to know if anybody's here from the FBI. I thought he looked familiar, but no, I'm just kidding. All right. Now, anybody here do emergency mitigation? I've seen a couple of your shirts and stuff like that. Cool, man, cool. And out of you guys that just raised your hand, do you also do contents? Who does contents? Contents, good deal. And I'm assuming if you're doing that, out of you same guys and gals, who does reconstruction, rebuild? Almost all of you, right? Almost all of you. Okay, good. So those people that just raised their hands, those are the true insurance restoration contractors right there. I want to say that because contents, you know, mitigation, contents, reconstruction, they do it all, every aspect of it. And okay, a couple more questions. Now, who here? I'm assuming that everyone else. Well, is there any like critter control type companies that do like critter pest, those kind of things? No? Okay. I'm assuming everybody else here, general contractors, roofing, exterior. How many people do? Okay. Got it. All right. How many people here do commercial work? All right. How many don't do commercial work but wants to do commercial work? All right. I think you have to have license for commercial work here in Illinois, right? Is that correct? Something. So okay. And I think there's one more question. I might have another one. Who all here? It'd be easier to ask it this way, and don't be shy about this. It's not anything to be like. Who here does not use Xactimate? There's got to be quite a few, right? Okay, good. So and usually that's because either they haven't gotten to it yet, right, and they want to, or they're like, man, Xactimate sucks, man. It doesn't pay anything, It doesn't pay enough money. And I get that. I'm going to try to change your mind. I am going to try to persuade you differently about that. All right, I think I'm pretty well done with the questions. Oh, no, I got more. Here we go. Who all here, out of the contractors, the non-PAs, who utilizes the services of a PA? Commercial, okay. And then who uses the service or like goes into litigation? Like either AOB, AOC, anybody still doing that stuff? AOBs and AOCs? A couple of them, all right. So going the litigation route, right? Okay, and appraisals. Who utilizes the appraisal process? Quite a few people, okay. All right, great, thank you very much. Now we all know, who's all here. Now, I want to tell you that everything that I'm going to talk about today, and this may, I don't know if it's going to disappoint you or make you satisfied, is not going to be about appraisals. It's not going to be about litigation. It's not going to be about the PA route, okay? I love the PAs. I love the attorneys. I love, the appraisers in the industry. I have a lot of great friends, and I've done a lot of jobs for them. Like, they hire me to go out and do the inspection, the estimate, including attorneys, and the documentation part of it, right? So one thing I know is that if you're a PA or if you're an attorney or if you do the appraisal route, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't have the documentation. Like, you still need to have a good inspection, the documentation, and a good, well-written estimate. You need to be able to back up that estimate, right? I know that because that's why they hired me to go and do it. If they have that information, then it's going to be a much better route for them. So I think this is valuable for you PAs that are here. I really do. Anybody that does the appraisals, I think it's valuable for you. Because you're gonna win no matter what you do. You're gonna win better if you have the more complete package for the insurance carrier. So, all right, now I think but I just want to express, nothing I do is going to be about policy, like trying to make them do. Everything's going to be anti-litigation. Everything I do, nothing ever ends up in litigation that I touch. Like, I am the anti-litigation guy. I'm the one that wants to work it out quickly. Get paid the highest amount possible without having to go to litigation. I understand the litigation part of it. I understand the PA stuff, and all I want to do is avoid it. That's more me, okay? So everything I'm going to talk about is in the contractor lane, from the contractor's perspective, through the contractor's eyes, what you can do as a contractor if you didn't have a PA license, okay? And the first thing that I want to say is that I believe that a contractor is hired for one purpose. And I'm gonna say this line, and I'm gonna say it again and again and again throughout the day. So it's the core of everything, okay? Why does the client hire you if you're a contractor? To go, fix the roof, to do, what are they hiring you to do? To return the property to the pre-loss condition, maybe, right? Yes, they are doing that. But it's to me, it's more than that. It's more simple than that. You are hired, like your obligation, you're contractually obligated to perform all repairs that are prescribed by the insurance claim. Period. That's what it is. And I'll say it again. Like, you're hired as the contractor to perform all of the repairs that are prescribed by the claim. Okay? So if I go out to a meeting with an adjuster and they ask me, do you have an estimate? Well, I mean, I kind of have this, the beginning of an estimate put together. I use Xactimate. I understand you guys use Xactimate, but actually I was hired to perform all the repairs that are prescribed by you, okay? So that's actually why I'm here, is to get my instructions from you, to get my marching orders from you, right? Like, I'll give you an estimate. I'm fully capable of writing an estimate, but as of right now, nothing's even been approved by you. So I need to know what it is that you're going to approve so that I know what I need to write an estimate on, right? So it's a different way of thinking of things. So I'm not the guy that goes out and hands the estimate to the adjuster, like, here's my estimate. I used to do that. That actually used to work. So, and I'm not knocking anybody that's doing that. I'd much rather you do that than don't do an estimate at all on Xactimate, right? But I'm not that guy. I'm not going to go there and meet the adjuster and show him my estimate. Because really, I want to see what they do first, guys. I want to see their cards, okay? I want to let them make their move, and then I want to react to their move. I want to be a counterpuncher. I want to be a reactor. And it works so well with so many things in life. The thing last week, I got to see her paperwork first, and I got to respond. You know what I mean? It's like, let them go ahead and make their move. Let them step in it. Let them go and step in it. Let them go and step in the trap, that they actually set for themselves, that you don't even have to set. Let them see where they're coming from, and you can learn so much by what they deny, by what they underpay for, right? Take and see their cards first. Don't show them your cards. That's my advice to you. You don't have to take my advice, but that's my advice. It works way better than just coming out and telling them what to pay for. And then you don't have to fight with them, right? So you might picture me out there wrestling around with these adjusters. It's actually not like that at all. I don't wrestle with them. I don't fight with them. I'm just here to get my instruction list. So you're hired to perform all of the repairs that are prescribed by the insurance claim. And I would add, for the total cost of the RCV, the replacement cost value. That's how I roll, right? I don't waive deductibles. I never did any of that. I can't say never. I think we all worked out something on a deductible, out of tons of them, right? But that's not a good, we'll talk about that. But you don't need to waive deductibles. I'll show you other ways where you don't need to waive deductibles if you understand what you're doing. So that's the thing is I want to find out what they want me to do and then respond from there. Okay, so that's number one. And so when you think of emergency mitigation, the first phase of it, you think of like a ServPro, and sorry if you compete with ServPro, I'm not trying, they're more franchised, but you think of people who've been around. I'm just thinking of the ones that have been around for a long time, like Belfour is a good one. They're huge, right? But stopping the bleeding. Every client actually has the obligation in their policy. I'm not going to talk about policy, and here I go talking about policy. To stop the bleeding, to mitigate the damages. Everyone has that obligation. So you need to understand that. It's like they must stop the bleeding, the client themselves. So if there's a pipe that breaks in the wall, it's up to, as soon as that client is aware of that, their duty is to shut off that water, stop it, you know what I mean? Stop the water from causing any damage and getting it dried up, getting it out, right? If there is a damage to the roof, for example, to get a tarp on it, to make it waterproof so that it doesn't continue to rain inside of the house, right? It's up to them. It doesn't say that, if you're a little old lady that can't pay for it, then you're off the hook. It doesn't say that. It says everyone has the obligation to mitigate. So who are mitigation contractors? It could be a plumber is a mitigation contractor, because they go there first maybe to stop the water. But, it's companies that come and dry everything out. Sometimes they remove and demo the wet sheetrock, right? On that note, if you think about an insurance adjuster estimate for drywall damage, what are you used to seeing? R&R half-inch drywall, right? Or 5/8-inch drywall, like in a line item. Well, when you look in Xactimate, that's coming from the drywall category, right? And so to remove that drywall, it's going to be so much, per square foot. But if you look in the mitigation category, the WTR category in Xactimate, now you have items like remove wet drywall and bag for disposal. That's a little bit different, right? Which one do you think costs more? It's definitely the remove wet, drywall bag for disposal. Remove wet insulation bag for disposal. Remove wet, baseboard bag for disposal. That's the emergent. And then is it category 1? Is it category 2? Or is it category 3 water damage? If there's certifications for water damage technician, I recommend it. ICRC, go down that road. I think all that can not hurt you. It's only going to help you, and you're going to learn a ton. But it's category 1 is just like a fresh water. It's layman's term. Water was out of a sink. Okay, water. Category 2 was a little bit more yucky. How about that? It's like you like that. It's just not. I'm not going to get into the toxic levels and all that. Category 3, think of sewage backup, like black stuff coming out. That everything that touches, everything's got to be stripped out, fully remediated. That's the worst of the worst. And you think about Mold, right? When you see water coming down that's been there for a while, a lot of water, it starts to turn black, and other colors, but it starts to turn dark. And so that's category 3 at that point, right? Quick tip, pro tip, never say the word mold, all right? So I just said mold. Take that word and throw it out of your vocabulary. And I'll tell you why. Because I learned this from my estimate writing days. I had mold remediation clients. And they would be like, hey, Chad, keep this one under 5,000 because that's the cap on it. So if you get talking about mold, there are all these restrictions and exclusions and ceilings, like caps, where it stops at this amount for any mold damage claim, right? And so there's been a lot of litigation with mold and things, so they're real sensitive about that. And they may have a restriction, like where they only pay out $5,000 on a mold claim ever. But they might have $1 million worth of coverage, but they're not going to pay more than $5 on the mold. Now, guys, what caused the mold? Water. So it's a water damage claim. I mean, you don't have to say anything about it. I mean, it's just not, you don't have to like make up anything. I'll never say, I will use truth at all times. Like insurance fraud always comes down to lying to the insurance company. That's what it always comes. And I can explain when I get into some of that stuff. But insurance fraud is always lying to the insurance company. So I take this so literally that if they ask me how I'm doing, and if I'm not well, I'm not going to tell them I'm doing good. Like I take it to the letter, I'm never going to lie to an insurance company. So I'm not saying, that you lie to them and say it's a water damage claim. I'm just saying the only time these things become mold damage is because people start saying, I've got mold, I've got mold, I've got mold. And the contractor comes in and says, we found mold. And so the adjuster, sometimes it has to be a specific type of an adjuster to deal with that. When it's water damage, it's just water damage. Like to deal with the problem, it's very similar to deal with mold. I mean, you have HEPA, cleaning, and you've got air scrubbing, you've got personal protective equipment. All of those items you can find in the WTR category, right? And there's a hazardous, other category where you're going to do like asbestos and mold and other things. You can find other things in there, but it's really pretty similar, So you can have chambers and to wash yourself off, like in a little, go into a secure area and strip it all off and wash it, and then you go out another door. Like you can do the same stuff in water damage claims, guys. And Hurricane Ike, Galveston, I remember standing in a residential house that was close to the water, the seawall, and it was me and an adjuster standing in this living room, side by side, and we're looking at this wall. And on the wall where the wall meets the floor, there was it looked like shrubbery, like coral reef. That's how much mold was sitting there because the seawater had previously been all the way up to the ceiling inside this house. So it was bad mold, And we're standing there, we have masks on, and I'm like, wow, would you look at the extent of that water damage? And he just, he just started laughing because he knew what I was talking about, but I think he was relieved because he didn't want it to be restricted. He didn't want to have to go give it to another adjuster. He already came out. He'd rather get the credit, It's water damage. So that's not, the word rot. Get that word out. That's, rot. What causes rot usually? Water. It's water. So the decking on a roof, you have the decking on there, and you're like, we have rotted decking, so we've got to replace the decking. They're like, oh, sorry, the policy doesn't cover rot. That's an easy one for them. You just made it real simple for them. So you open up the wall in the kitchen, and you found all this rotted wood behind it. That's simple. If you tell them rot, they're not paying for it. But you don't have to tell them rot. There's many building codes that requires that it be replaced. So, if it is decking, you can't roof over top of any water-saturated underlayment. You cannot ever roof over top of water-soaked decking. And you also cannot ever roof over top of any kind of decking that's not solidly sheathed. Okay? Or you might see other versions that say nailable surface, but it actually says solidly sheathed. And what does that mean, right? So if it's rotted, there's like 3 building codes that kills it. You know what I mean? That you can use to get that decking replaced. And if it does need replaced, even in an area, now the decking needs to be brought up to code. You follow me on that? So when you see a water spot on a ceiling, And I usually look around at these hotels because you can usually find them, no matter how nice it is, you can find them, and I do see some. But I want you to picture, there's one right there. Perfect. And it's drywall. This spot right there, and I don't know what that is. I can't get up there close enough. They don't have my special lights, but I can see different lights. I don't know how it got there. Let's just picture we're in a residential house, right? And we go and we see a water spot on the ceiling. Now, I would recommend always inspecting every room, closet, and hallway of any residential job and any commercial inspection. So if you're doing 10, 15-minute inspections, I just want to encourage you, if you really want to get real good at this, think differently about that. Schedule less appointments. My appointments are inspections 2-3 hours. I'm going. You guys are taking 5 pictures. I'm taking 300 pictures. Of even just simple jobs. I'm documenting everything like crazy. I am inspecting every room, closet, and hallway. I'm really looking more at the ceilings, maybe around the windows and things like that. It depends on what kind of claim it is, right? But I want to see, because I always find a water spot. I always find one that no one ever knew that they had. So there's right there. It helps me actually sell the job. When they see how thorough I am, they see how detailed I get up into the attic. What I just told you about the decking, if I'm doing the roof on this job, I'm getting up in the attic because I don't need to wait to open up the shingles to find out that the deck has to be replaced. I can just get up in the attic and see it from the underside, and if I find any water damage, then now I can get it from there. If it's not a nailable, solid sheathing surface, then I can get it from there. There's a lot that I can get from the underside. If it's space decking, I can find it from the attic. So if we're doing a roof, but and there is an attic, but we're not going in, we fail. Why would we not do that? So every room, closet, and hallway, I'm looking for a water spot. I use a little mag light, and it works really good for me. And I find one, right? Now, what needs to happen? I think a lot of people, maybe in this room, you see that and you're like, don't worry about it. Mr. and Mrs. Jones showed it to you. And you're like, don't worry about that, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, because you just put some kills over that and no big deal. We were going to do the roof and the siding. You don't want to have to worry about that. You guys can take care of that on your own. So, just spot that. And we're good. Let's go back outside. They don't want to deal with it. I want to deal with every little piece, right? I'll give you a number of reasons why. First, the kills is not the solution. That's not going to work, guys. That's not the proper, if you want to be a professional, that's not the proper way to deal with it. You think it's going to take care of it, you're going to make an argument with me? No, it's not, man. Later on, it's going to bleed through. Okay, it'll bleed through, and if it doesn't bleed through, it's likely to bleed through. Let me just say it like that. If it doesn't bleed through, though, let me get you to think about it like this: how did that water get there, man? How did it even get there? Probably, who knows? But if it came from the outside, if it's part of the roof, then it landed on the roof. Maybe went through bird waste and algae, right? And then goes down through insulation, damages the insulation, compromises the R values of the insulation, right? Goes through wood and maybe, for all intents and purposes, rotted wood, metal, rusted metal, and then it finds its way down. It's gravity, right? It has to run down, and then it lands on top of the drywall. And you usually see those spots at cutouts like the lights, and different things, openings, the registers, smoke detectors. It's trying to find a way out. So it's coming out around those. But if it can't find that, on that, it's ponding on the other side of it. It's just sitting there, and then it's permeating down through the drywall. So much so that we can see it on this side. You got to understand that's pretty serious, actually, when you think about it. What's the other side of that drywall look like? And you're just going to kill this side of it? That doesn't work to me, guys. So what I'm saying, I'm not saying you need to rip out the whole ceiling. I'm just saying where that wet spot is, you need to cut that out. Remove it, okay? Remove the wet insulation that's above there, apply the antimicrobial agent to the whole area, clean it up basically, replace the insulation, replace the drywall, replace the texture, prime it, paint the whole ceiling, right? And before you can do that, you have to mask and cover the floor. Well, first you have to get the contents out of the way, the contents, right? But you mask and cover the floor, you have to mask and tape along the perimeter of the ceiling, but you have to detach and reset the ceiling fan, the light fixtures, the HVAC registers, the smoke detectors, right? And then, by the way, if that spot is over in a corner, picture there's no crown molding, but it's in a corner and it's close to the wall, it's touching the wall, or even close to the wall. When you tear out that drywall, it's going to peel the paint off of the wall, okay? So that's why I also need to paint the wall. Not just one wall, all the walls wherever it leads in a continuous run. You see what I mean? And if I'm going to do the walls now I have to masking tape along the baseboard, maybe twice down there. And then I have to masking tape around all the windows and the door frames. I have to detach and reset the AC returns, the thermostats, anything that's on the wall sconces, the shelves, the mirrors, the towel bars, the toilet paper holders, and the towel ring, and the door stop. All those things are on there. So like when you think about Xactimate, the reason why Xactimate sucks is because you don't have enough line items in your estimate. That's why. Xactimate is freaking phenomenal. It's phenomenal. But you have to include all of the items that are on the job, okay? And that's part of it. And also, they don't want to give you overhead and profit. Why? Well, where I come from, the old school, it was 3 trades or more. Any 3 trades or more got you overhead and profit. So like roofing, siding, gutters. Bing, bing. You didn't have to worry about it. You knew where the threshold was. And then somewhere along the line, started by State Farm, and everybody else got in line and followed them, which is, oh, sorry, this one, we're not giving you overhead and profit because it doesn't reach the level of complexity and or coordination that's required of a general contractor. And you're like, huh? Well, it doesn't reach the level of complexity and or coordination. You're like, so where's that line? Where's that line when it gets complex enough and it requires enough coordination enough to make it so that overhead and profit can be paid? Well, I would submit to you, putting kills on there ain't gonna do it. You see what I mean? So like if you did it right, oh, that's complex, isn't it? Isn't it? That's way more complex the way I described all those steps. And if you do all those steps and you're not having all those items in your estimate, then you're gonna do those items anyway. And you're gonna pay your subs or whoever your people are that are carrying out that work. You're gonna pay them to do all that stuff, but you're not getting paid to do all that. So my thing is, really is, and some people will say, well, you try to take as much and throw it at the wall as possible, hoping for it to stick. Maybe, I'd said a little bit like that. I mean, there is some element of that, I'll tell you. That's maybe a part of the strategy, but it's much more disciplined and structured and strategized than that, okay? But essentially, I am, though, trying to start from the highest position possible when dealing with the insurance company. Okay? Like I had a guy in Florida, he does water mitigation. He was so mad and angry because of the insurance companies that no matter what, they have to, mitigation, you have to go do the work and then submit the bill, right? So you have that leverage because the work's already been incurred, but if they cut you back on it, there's no chance to get them again when you're doing the job's already done. So like he was submitting like, $8,000 invoices, and they would always, no matter what he did, cut it down to like 5 and 6, no matter what he did. I said, did you give him building codes? Did you give him documentation? Did you give him all that, moisture reading? You gave him everything. No matter what he did after this particular hurricane, they were just cutting him down. And I was like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, man. You're saying you're submitting at 8 and they're cutting it down to 5? He's like, yeah. I go, start submitting 12. Start submitting 12. And let them cut you down to 8, Like that may be a solution. I'm going to use a lot more strategy than that, But listen, so in my approach, though, is to do a very, very detailed inspection so that I can find the items. So that's what kills me is like I've been hired so many times and I get to the house and it's already been inspected by many different people, maybe multiple different adjusters already, the sales reps for the contractor, maybe different people for the contractor, like project managers, the homeowners, and they've all inspected this building and they didn't notice, but as soon as I walk up to the building, and all I'm doing is just like I have to check all the boxes. I have to see everything. So it's every room, closet, and hallway, and it's every elevation on the exterior, if it is like a storm damage thing, every single elevation has to be dusted for prints. Like I look at every job site like it's a crime scene that has to be investigated. Like it's a full-on crime scene, like CSI. That's kind of when I come with my stuff, I want to know, so I'm not going to miss anything on the exterior elevation if it's there. I'm not going to miss it. It's one of my first things. So I go up and there's a brick or stucco or whatever it is, and I see that there's a chunk missing out of it. and the damage is right on the ground. And I go over here, I see more, it's not defect, it's from the actual storm. And I'm like, anybody see this? No, nobody saw it. So I make most of my money at the inspection. I think that a lot of these arguments you're having with adjusters, one part of the problem is you didn't even see all the items that you could have put on there. And so I think you have to start there collecting more items, okay? And then those items have to be interpreted or translated, if you will, or transcribed rather, into an Xactimate estimate, okay? Item by item by item. Do I expect them to approve every item on the estimate? No, right? But my inspection is going to have me with more line items than anybody else, okay? So I'm starting from a higher position than anybody else. They're always going to push you down. I end up at a higher position than anybody else. So it's never my goal to try to get my estimate approved 100% by the insurance company. It does happen, and when it does happen, like when they approve my whole estimate, I'm like, uh-oh, what did I do wrong? Like I must have left something on the table, because the older I've got, the more experience I've got, the higher my estimates have become, with items that generally get approved by insurance companies. So not like, a quick tip, OSHA is required, guys. I got you. It's required. Definitely it's required, right? All the OSHA safety items is always required. Just a tip for you. Take off the word OSHA. You're relying on saying OSHA, 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 and they're resisting. They don't like OSHA items, which is so stupid. I don't agree with it either. But you can get a lot of these safety items approved if you just stop referring to OSHA all the time. I don't know why that is. I'm a student of the numbers, right? So I'm just going to share my data with you. I don't focus on, the OSHA stuff. But anyway, get kind of getting off track with that. But start from a higher position, end at the higher position. You get to the higher position starting with your inspection, all right? So now, one more thing about mitigation. So I'm thinking of Hurricane Michael, and I actually have a job that I want to share. I have like a case study I'll go through just so I can show you some things. But Hurricane Michael, like Panama City a few years back, and I used to go down before hurricanes, and the power would be off, the water would be out, and it was crazy. I'm getting older now. I don't want to do that. There's no place to stay. I go now after, let the dust settle. And I came in about 2 weeks after that hurricane, and I just went to survey the area and drive around and see kind of what the damage looked like. And it was devastating. It was 150 mile an hour wind, and out in front of almost every house and every business, it seemed like there was a pile of rubble laying in front of it, like a big, huge pile that the city was coming to pick up on designated days. And this pile was like, drywall, insulation, cabinets, carpet, hardwood, just all destroyed and put over there. And some trees, from the outside, and they put it all in this big thing, and furniture. And I was like, this is absolutely despicable. I was so disgusted by what I was seeing. And just like the level of common sense in this town. And unfortunately, it's on every town after a hurricane. The news spends so much time broadcasting online, like, watch out for scams and watch out. And the Better Business Bureau says, what they should say on the news is, you need to tarp your building immediately. You need to 100% tarp your building immediately, because the disaster that just happened, there's going to be a worse disaster that comes next. Because what happened was, there wasn't a bunch of rain from the storm, and it just kind of rained and quickly moved out, and then a week or so went by, and then a big, huge Florida rainstorm came, and I don't know, it's the funniest thing, guys. All these items like cabinets, carpet, drywall, insulation, I guess they didn't know that those things are not waterproof. It's amazing, right? And the water runs down. And so you did see little patches of tarps in places, and I think these are the contractors that are looking at the missing shingle part, and they're just tarping that when the whole roof is ripped apart at the seams, and so it rains, it just rains in the building. So now I bring that up because that's mitigation, okay? And my problem with it is that the contractors should have known, way more than the clients did. The insurance adjuster should have been sending out things. Like if they're calling to file a claim, hey, did you tarp it? Did you tarp it? Because think of that. They have the obligation to mitigate the damages. They did not mitigate the damages. Now the rest of the house is destroyed, sitting out in the yard. And so like technically the insurance company could say, sorry, that's on you. You didn't mitigate the damages. Now they don't do that. They actually pay for that. So for all the complaints about insurance companies screwing people over, they take it real bad right there. I got to say that, they do. And they end up ultimately usually kind of paying for that, unless there's like egregious, reasons why they didn't do it. Why did those contractors just do those patches? Like they got maybe like, there's an emergency services call you can get, like $185 or $200, depending on where you are, out of Xactimate. But that wouldn't be worth it. It didn't solve any problems. What I'm getting at is Xactimate charges by the square foot for tarping. So if you went up to like a Serpro job or a Belfour job, 100% of that roof is tarped. I'm not saying that if you have a little windstorm and a tree hits the house in the back that the whole thing needs to be, it might be, you gotta, depending on the type of claim that it is. But if it got nailed by hail that's so significantly that it's gonna cause water damage coming in, where do you start with tarping that roof? The whole thing needs to be tarped. There's a tarp estimate file as one of those estimates in the documents that I gave you. And I just want to guess maybe it's like a 30 square roof, maybe less than 30 squares, but it was 2-story, steep charge. So you have it's per square foot in Xactimate, you have steep charge. And by the way, it's R&R, remove and replace, because you have to take it back off, right? So it's remove and replace and install lumber around the perimeter to tuck the tarp over to create a proper water flow. So doing it proper, and the penetrations, like getting those all watertight around the pipe jacks and all those areas. But you have the 2-story, you have the steep charge. I think that estimate is like $12,000 or $13,000 for a tarp job on a regular little house. And so these people in Florida, they missed a ton of profit. I mean, because those are highly profitable type jobs. So like what I would have done in Florida is I would have went around with an emergency services work authorization form, which you can actually get inside your Xactimate, but if you can't find it, it's one of the documents I gave you. You can get it in there. And that's all you need to have the client sign that and directly bill them for that tarp job. And because it's mitigation, you can usually get that, not always, but usually get that money sent directly to you. So you can literally go around with flyers, knocking on doors, and emergency work authorization forms. Like, hey, I could dispatch my tarp crew in here and get you fixed right up, and we'll just bill the insurance company directly. You don't have to worry about a thing, right? I mean, that's another level of doing things, right? So that's a lot about the mitigation, but you have a smoke damage claim. Just a simple little fire in a house where they have a little kitchen fire that gets put out right away, but has a bunch of smoke that goes throughout the house. Say a 3-bedroom house, right? Just a regular ranch-style house. It could be that everything in that house now needs to be cleaned because this toxic soot that's all over everything. There's studies now that it causes psychological damage, the odor, smell, and insurance companies are now acting based on that. So it's a lot more extensive than you may realize, but everything would have to be cleaned in the house, meaning first, like the windows have to be cleaned. The window sill has to be clean. The door has to be clean. The doorknob has to be clean. The lock set has to be clean. The door hardware, the hinges, has to be clean. And there are items for that in Xactimate. You see what I mean? So like the baseboard, clean. Register, clean. The ceiling fan, clean. And then you start getting into the contents. And that's where I want to kind of make a shift. Now this is something, guys, so I missed the boat in building codes over my career, and I definitely missed the boat in contents like you would not believe. I feel like this is a big value point here. If you're not doing this, if you don't know anything about this, this could be something where you can add a lot of money to your bottom line. So like if a client has extensive damage in their home and you have to move the contents out of the way, right? I mean, that's a big problem in the sense that the insurance company just puts on their large room, move out, then reset, large, right, or extra large. And that's what I always used to do. And if there was more contents, I would put like 2 on there maybe, and I'd explain it why. And the client would be like, what do I do with all my personal stuff? And I'd be like, oh, well, you don't want us going through your personal stuff, ma'am, so you pack it all up, okay? Go through everything and pack it all up and put it in boxes, and we'll move it out of the way for you. How's that sound? So we're making the client do all that work that they're not getting paid for, to take their time and do all that intensive labor. And then our guys are going in and moving it for them, and we're not getting paid for that either. Really, we're not, because there's nothing in the move out reset that's going to cover that. So go to the contents categories and Xactimate. So you have like CPS, contents packing and storage. And if you look in there, guys, you have like, small box, large, medium box, large box, extra large box, wardrobe box, mirror box, mattress covers, furniture pads, fragile wrap, bubble wrap, and on and on and on and on and on. I mean, you got stuff for everything as far as packing up. You have the van charges for moving van and different sizes of moving van, and then you have the climate controlled storage. You don't have to put it in a pod in the driveway like they want you to in the summertime. You don't have to do that. They'll pay for the climate controlled storage by the square foot, by the week, or by the month. I mean. So these things start to add up. I learned this through the estimate writing company. A guy had one of these jobs, and it was a 3-bedroom kitchen fire, ranch style. It was Farmers, I'll never forget. It wasn't that big of a house, but this lady had a lot of things. It wasn't like a hoarder, but she had a lot of things, a lot of clothes. Every room had things. There's tons of stuff. And all of her clothes and all of her contents, like drapery, rugs, bedspreads, everything in the house had to be clean, professionally clean and treated with an ozone treatment to get that odor out. And then like the furniture, everything had to be clean, and also then had to be moved and stored and then moved back, So if you look in like that, also in the CPS, there is inventory packing, and like there's a per hour charge, and then there's supervisor charge. Like somebody actually has to be a supervisor that's there, and that's a little bit more. So like every little aspect, and then you have anything between business hours, or within business hours, and then after business hours. So it's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Any time after that's actually after business hours. I wouldn't assess it that way unless there's a reason to, like the reason why you had to do it. A lot of times there is, like you have to go and stop the bleeding in the middle of the night, for sure I would. But then the emergency services charge for that too. But so this guy had his job, and he asked me if I could do an estimate for him. And he needed the content packing and storage estimate, and also the content cleaning estimate, like everything had to be clean. So I was like, all right, well, I'll tell you the truth though, guy. I've seen some of the stuff in my Xactimate, but I don't know anything about it. Never done it before, so I could try to figure it out. He goes, it should be pretty easy because I have the inventory of everything, and I like in real organized list. And as long as you can find those items in Xactimate, it's just a matter of finding them and putting them in. I was like, okay, if you're willing to let me give it a shot, I will. And I went in there, and I was amazed at how many things there were. And like the contents cleaning, I was able to find like a lazy boy type chair, like a baby's bib, the crib liner, women's fancy blouse, men's sport jacket. These are items, everything's in there, guys. They thought of everything. I couldn't find a Budweiser sign, but I found a neon lighted sign. I found it. So, there's everything. There's so many different things in there. I was really blown away. I came together with like 20-something on each estimate. For the packing and the storage, 20-something thousand, 20-something thousand for the, I see some of your expressions. I see that's how I was, okay? Like it was 20-something thousand for the cleaning. And so it was 43,000, I remember. The damage to fix the smoke damage may not be that much. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm sitting here thinking, oh man, I've got problems because he's going to be mad at me. He's not going to want to pay me because I charged based on the percentage of the estimate. He's going to think I'm just, putting fluff on here. And then it's not going to get approved by Farmers. Farmers is going to laugh this out of the city, But I told him how much it was. He's like, yeah, that sounds about right. Go ahead and send it over. Or send me the invoice and I'll get you paid. And I was like, okay, this is like my client, the contractor. He'd done this before. I'm like, okay. So I sent it over to him. He submits it to Farmers, and Farmers approves every dime, like right away, no resistance. And I'm just like you were, and I'm thinking, I was really excited to learn that new aspect of the industry that I didn't know was right underneath my feet. But then I was devastated by all the money I lost and missed over years and years and years. I've been sick ever since about it. It's like that trauma that keeps replaying itself over and over and over again. You keep having those images in your head. So anyway, this is my way to kind of pay it forward. Like I want to try to make up for that trauma in large numbers. You know, like you guys got to get into the contents. There's a whole bunch of training and learning you could do. That's one of the IICRC things you can get involved with the contents, and then you guys know. That's why I want to break it down into the phases, right? And then you have the reconstruction. That's the rebuild. Everybody does that here, I think, you know, and that's pretty straightforward. So you don't have to really go into that. I will say though, now that you think about it separated like that, one of my strategies is if there's a lot of damage, like a big water damage job, and we're going to gut this place out or something similar to it, the stuff's got to get out of the way. We're going to have to do the contents. What I like to do is come in and start with the mitigation estimate, okay? So I like to draw an imaginary line down the middle of this estimate between the R and the R, the removal and the replacement, right? So I like to, in my head, everything that's getting removed, remove, detach, if it's detach and reset, right? That all goes on the demo estimate, the mitigation estimate. And I put all my cleaning there, fans, equipment, you know, all that stuff, and extracting water, tarping, whatever is mitigation, I'll put it on that mitigation estimate. But no contents, okay? No reconstruction, no nothing. Just by itself, that mitigation estimate, get that submitted, and then get the insurance company locked in on all of those items. Get as much approved as humanly possible there. Whatever they approve to remove, obviously, they're going to approve to put it back. That's just common sense. What they usually don't expect to come are the contents. So I hit them with that. Maybe they missed it on the, you know, they're thinking to themselves like, oh, they didn't even put the contents on here, dummies, you know, and they're thinking that, right? And so I put on there, remove, and they approve it, and I say, okay, you guys ready for the contents estimate? And they're like, contents estimate? What contents estimate? Like, glad you asked, let me get that over to you, you know what I mean? And then lock them in on the contents, and then get them on the reconstruct, just slowly bleed them out, you know, where there's they like to do that to us, they like to pick us apart, you know? So that's one of another top-down strategies. I'm not always gonna do that. But listen, on that demo, if it is water damage, is it remove drywall or is it remove drywall and bag or remove wet drywall, bag for disposal? You see, I don't even always use that just on a water spot. I could, especially if the adjuster's being a jerk, I could always switch it up and go out of the mitigation category. But if it's extensive wet stuff, I'm always going to use that. So instead of removing and R&R everything, I have this mitigation estimate where it's remove wet, you know, baseboard, bag for disposal, remove wet insulation, bag for disposal. And it's much higher of an estimate now just by doing that. I used to do a little exercise with new mitigation clients coming in. I'd be like, watch this. I'm going to take the estimate they wrote for you, not add any other items at all, but I'm just going to split it into two. Mitigation, reconstruction. And I would change it to remove wet, remove, and they're like, whoa, that's crazy. And now we can start adding in contents and other things to it, right? Now, at this point, we're gonna take it's time. We're gonna take a 10-minute break, a little bit shorter, but I want to say, when we come back, start asking me questions, okay? I noticed we haven't got to really anything yet where you stop me and start asking questions. Thought maybe the tarp thing sometimes would get bogged down, but we'll start doing questions as we go. But feel free to fire them out. If I can't take them, I'll tell you. But I'm gonna get my computer open. We'll start doing some more valuable stuff when we come back. So I'll see you in 10 minutes. It's 11 o'clock. It's about 11:03. I'll see you at 11:13. What's up, brother? Yeah.
Hi, Caesar.
Caesar, good to meet you, brother. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for coming, man. You're a sharp dude. I see you back there. Thank you, man. Thank you for coming, brother. Thank you, man.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, brother. Thank you for coming, man. Thank you, man.
Twice in a day.
I know.
Hey, good to meet you, man.
Good to meet you. What's your name?
Bob Cook.
Bob Cook.
I'm going to light you up a little later on overhead profit on just a roof.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good, man. We'll do that a lot, actually.
Thanks, sir.
You bet, man. Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. UCF, right?
Yeah.
UCF, Orlando. I used to live there. Good to meet you, man.
How you doing?
Good,
Thanks,
man.
thanks
What's
for
your name?
coming. Robert Moore.
Robert Moore. Thank you for coming,
Thank
man.
you, man.
I like that.
Appreciate
I like that logo,
Thank
dude.
you,
That's
sir.
nice.
Thanks for doing this.
You bet, man. Thank you for coming, dude.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, man. Thank you for coming.
Rosal, nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Rosal.
Rosel. Y yo hablo español poquito también, ¿ok? No te pongas loco conmigo. All right, man. Evan? Kevin.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you, brother.
Hey, George.
George, nice to meet you, man. You guys are crazy handshakers, man. Chris.
Chad, I'm Mikey.
Mikey, nice to meet you, man.
Correct.
Craig, good to meet you, brother. Thank you for coming, man.
I need to meet you. How you doing?
Well, good. Thank you for coming, man. I appreciate it. I know Aftermath.
Oh, you know.
I know.
Hey,
All right,
yeah,
man.
man.
Good to meet you,
Hey,
man.
man, pleasure.
Thank you for coming. What is it? Bieta. Okay. Pleasure to meet you, Chad.
Derek.
Derek, nice to meet you, man.
Sarah.
Sarah, I like your jacket. That's
Thank you.
awesome. I like
Thank
that. I like winter jackets.
Luis.
Luis, nice to meet you, brother.
Gavino, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming, man. I appreciate it.
George.
George, thank you, man. Thank you guys for saying hi to me too.
We got to talk about trees.
Trees, all right, man. I like trees.
Well, we need a
Nice to
program
meet
for
you,
that.
Sean, thank you for coming, man.
Justin.
Justin, pleasure to meet you, brother. Thank you for coming, man. I appreciate it. I like your hat. Let me see that logo. Yeah, that's nice. I like that. I like that. Ted, good to meet you, man. Thank you for coming, brother.
Taylor.
Nice to meet you, man. Shannon's son's name's Taylor.
We gotta make it a little different.
Huh?
Give me that fist bump.
Oh, okay, man. Unique, so I remember,
Chris.
right?
Nice to
Chris,
meet you, man.
I like your logo, dude. That's nice. Thank you for coming, man. Raúl?
Yes.
Y yo hablo español un poquito también, so, hablas conmigo si quieres. All right. Thank you guys for
I
coming.
want you to say hi to my dad. He
Okay.
actually was the one that
What's
encouraged
it-
me to come here. Se llama Luis.
Hello, Luis. How are you, brother? Hey, thank you for sending him here, man.
He's like, you gotta go.
He's sharp. This dude's sharp right here. He's about to take over the industry. He is.
Open up
He
for
is.
10 minutes.
Thank you for coming, brother. Oh. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I think.
I want to tell you, I actually am with the FBI.
Are you really? That's great. We didn't get you up there.
No, you
Thank
don't
you for
want
coming,
to today. Not these.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for coming, dude. I like you guys are sharp dudes up there in the front too. Thank you for coming, man. Yeah.
Let me help you.
Oh,
I do this for pencils.
you do it,
No,
huh?
I'm gonna take it off.
Oh, you want to take it off?
Yeah, we're taking it
That's
off.
okay, or turn it off or something.
She doesn't want me to be overheard.
Yes, yes.
All my, she doesn't want to
The
hear.
thing is that wire goes all the way down to his socks.
She doesn't want me to say all my filthy things and everybody be able to hear.
There's no ball next time.
Yeah, she kept telling me, stop, they can hear me. I'm like, I don't care.
Thank you.
Digging up something from the past with Bill Murray because he was doing an interview on the Tonight Show and he was sitting next to